This week on Log It, we're doing Midsommar, and we're joined by a very special guest today, Adriana. Adriana, how's it going?
It's going. The impossible question of the week.
Yeah. One of the worst questions of all time, but then
worst
I can't
question.
help but ask all the time because I know it's the worst. Ian's also here.
Hey,
Ian, how are
guys.
you doing? I'll double down.
I'm doing great. Okay, good.
Well, cool. This is very exciting. We're here to talk Midsommar. Adriana, you were particularly interested in Midsommar. This is your recommendation. You love this movie. It sounds like you took a class about this movie. You told us.
I did.
That's so cool. Did you get good insights that we'll cover on the show?
I got some pretty good insights. Yeah, I have an interesting relationship with like movies I really like. I tend to really deep dive, and yeah, I feel like a little bit the more I find out about this movie, I like it less than I did initially.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I like that.
but I still really enjoy it and can separate that it's a movie.
Definitely.
And there's also like historical context. So yeah.
A lot of layers to this one too. I think it definitely is a movie that rewards rewatching. Kind of like Rosemary's Baby from the last episode we did with Riley. Like you can watch it a couple times and pick up a few things, which I won't be doing because I'll never watch this movie again. But
Okay.
excited for other people to have that experience.
Yeah, I do think rewatching is really helpful with this type of thing.
Yeah.
And especially just because, you get more familiar with like the characters and where they are situationally. And yeah, it can be fun to see it in different lights. And when you're prepared for something to happen, also,
That's true.
You feel differently, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And also that this movie does I don't know if it's a good job or just does a job of like foreshadowing. Like you really go into the movie knowing exactly how it's going to play out.
Yeah, it's funny you say the foreshadowing thing because the very first image of the movie, I think, is a banister done in the art style of the Swedish community. And it is kind of like the whole movie mapped out ahead of time, which is really fun detail. But yeah, this definitely is like a rewatch movie. I think I've watched this. I should look at my letterbox, but probably like 4 or 5 times now over the years. I really, really like it. I think visually it's really beautiful, and I like how bright and colorful it is for a horror movie. And then also like you guys were saying, the more you know about the story and the more you kind of understand what's happening and where characters are at, it really, for me, changes the experience watching it. Ari Aster, are you guys Ari Aster fans in general? He's only done 3 movies, which I thought he had done more.
No, I mean, this is the only one I've seen. Okay. No, hold on. Like,
dang, dude.
Everything Caleb said, absolutely correct. It was so beautifully shot. I loved the movie, the color. It did make me interested in his other 2 films. Hereditary, which was his first one, right? Which was like a bombshell. Like I think everyone that saw it for the most part, like loved it. At least people that I've spoken to. And then Beau is Afraid, the latest one, kind of got mixed reviews, but he's like a director I'm interested in. I kind of like, I don't know. I like the way he plays with horror. You know what I mean? Like he definitely kind of turns it on its head and makes it definitely more interesting to me. But when you kind of invert it in a way, it makes me want to watch his other 2 movies for sure.
Interesting. Personally, okay, so I went and saw Hereditary with a big group of friends, and I was like the only one who didn't like it.
Interesting.
And I stand by that. I like didn't like the movie.
Oh, you didn't like Hereditary?
And yeah, it's weird. I didn't like Hereditary. So I guess I would say I'm not an Ari Aster fan, but it's hard to say that because I really, really like this movie. So I like this on its own. I'm interested to see Rumors. I haven't seen it yet. I feel like I'm not going to love it, but I have an open mind. And but yeah, usually I'm kind of like a director girly, and I tend to really like the work of like one person's vision. So far I don't know. I want to see how it goes with Ari Aster.
What compelled you to watch this one after seeing Hereditary? After not liking it, I guess.
Well, oddly enough, in my mind, I felt like Midsommar, I didn't see it before Hereditary, but in my mind, like it feels that way. I guess I was more interested in the content of this because I have a history in herbalism and I have lot of like, and I have like interest in folk horror and
cool.
So this is up your alley.
Like, it was like all up my alley in a big way. And I don't think I even was like, oh, I hated Hereditary so much I can't see it. I just wasn't like blown away by Hereditary.
Gotcha.
So
what about Hereditary wasn't clicking?
I think for me, I wanted more of that like esoteric sort of lineage of like magic practice and folk horror to really be like abundant. And I felt like, I don't know, it just wasn't really, the dots weren't connected enough for me. And I think that might just be my bias as somebody who is really interested in that topic.
Caleb, you've seen this movie 6 times.
Are you checking my letterbox? Are you checking?
No, I'm going off what you've said.
No, I've seen it a handful at least.
Okay. Is it a movie though, Caleb, that you put on like in the background? Because again, it is like very visually stimulating.
No, this is usually when I'm watching because I'm looking for that like specific emotional kind of impact. Because this one scratches a very nice itch for me.
Interesting.
I was saying, a rewards rewatch. But before, let me do a quick breakdown of the plot so people can follow along. But I pulled this from Letterboxd, which I should have been doing this whole time. Let the festivities begin. Several friends travel to Sweden to study as anthropologists, a summer festival that is held every 90 years in the remote hometown of one of them. This is not really great written. What begins as a dream probably. What begins as a dream vacation in a place where the sun never sets gradually turns into a dark nightmare as the mysterious inhabitants invite them to participate in their disturbing festive activities. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I saw Hereditary really late. I didn't see it early, but that's like a pretty pure horror movie. But this one to me started out very horrifying. Like when you don't know what's going on and you don't know like who's in danger and who's safe, it's a lot scarier to me. Where now it's almost like comedic to me. Like it's so horrifying. I'm not literally laughing, but I definitely see it more as like a positive story, and that Danny kind of wins in the end, which is cool.
Yeah, it's like a found family movie kind of too in a way. When I think about this movie, or just like scary movies in general, like you think of like jump scares, dark shadows, things around the corner. In this movie, like everything is like the wide shots are just like beautiful greenery everywhere. Everything is lit. So again, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think talking about this made me want to watch it again.
Well, I do think like the amount of light is it's an interesting way of like a horror movie sort of being flipped on its head, because most horror movies happen completely in the dark. And there's very little darkness in this movie,
which I love. It's so disorienting because they say at the beginning it's like a 9-day festival, and it just feels like one continuous day. Like you have no idea when it starts and when it ends.
Yeah.
Guys, I like this movie.
Yeah, in the festival, so the big house burning at the end, spoilers, is the festival that happens every 90 years, but Midsommar and May Queen is yearly, right?
Yeah, so the sacrifice I think happens, like the human sacrifice and like the human breeding is only every 90 years. But they, like you said, they do this festival every midsummer.
Which is, we'll get more into that because I still want to understand more about the like, nobody lives past 72, right? That is like every time. That's not, so they just happened to hit this like sweet spot of Midsommar where they had the death ceremony and the other one, right? Because those three were technically separate events, as I understand it.
What do you mean?
Well, the first like big weird thing is that the two people jump off the cliff. Then they do the May dance and the Maypole and the May Queen, and that's the Midsommar every year festival. And then they also do the burning of the house where they burn 4 of their people, 4 outsiders, and then 1 person the May Queen picks. And those are 3 separate events that they just happen to be catching all at once.
I think you're right. I think that final event is the one that happens every 90 years. Because they do the Midsommar. When she goes and Pele's showing her all the pictures of the May Queens, there's a bunch of photos that like, so I would assume that that's happening
yearly.
Yeah.
So basically, Danny has a sister who has like mental health issues. It seems like she's like maybe bipolar. She is having an episode, and Danny's really worried about her. The sister ends up taking her own life, as well as her parents, who it seems like she lives with, by like suffocating them with exhaust from a car, essentially. A very crazy way of doing it.
Truly like one of the most horrifying images I've seen in a while.
It's really
it's like shocking.
Yeah.
Also, that whole beginning, like that whole first 20 minutes is like basically pitch black. Like it's all, there's like no light.
And it's winter, there's snow.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of an inverse of where we end up. Totally. And she has a boyfriend named Christian or Christian, depending on where you're from. And
Christian.
He's kind of a shitty boyfriend. There's nothing like objective, like there's nothing like not cheating or like abusing her or anything, but he's clearly like not invested in the relationship, or at least not as much as she is. It's clear he kind of wants to break up with her. And at one point he's like,
what if I regret it later and I can't get her back?
You don't want her back.
I might.
So he's got kind of these like shitty motives where he's more just scared of like losing her, or like missing out on the opportunity to have a relationship with her. None of Christian's friends like her. She finds out that they're taking a trip to Sweden, which Christian never told her about. So she is invited by Christian begrudgingly, and he kind of doesn't even think she'll come. And she agrees to come because she's like, why not? I'm going through hell. This will be fun. So she goes, and there's a guy named Pell who's invited all of them. And he's from Sweden. He's from this Hårga people.
Hårga. Or actually, I don't know. I don't know how to correct you, and I didn't know.
Hårga. And he is super cool. He's super chill. Seems like a really nice dude. And he
Swedish,
seems to take a particular interest in Danny. Yes, very Swedish. Go ahead, Ian.
No, that was it. And also, Christian and Josh and Christian, are they the anthropologists? So like Josh is like going there because he wants to like go to this commune and like study and wants to write a paper. So
and
he's like
it's
that.
His like final, his big final, right? Christian is kind of going for fun.
He's a man with like no compass. He's just there to go. Especially when we'll get into it, but he's the worst character, honestly.
Yeah, he sucks. Yeah, like you said, Josh is going for his research paper, and then Will Poulter, aka Mark, is just basically like a fuck boy.
He's just
wants
horny.
To go party.
Horny
he thinks it's going to be like Coachella or like Burning Man or something, basically. Yeah, this is a great follow-up to Rosemary's Baby because they both include two of like the best like gaslighting partner examples. And this one, it's totally like Rosemary's Baby. Guy is being gaslighting for like his own like selfish like career ambitions, and that's what he's like sacrificing Rosemary for. But Jack, or Christian in this case, in my opinion, his gaslighting and his selfishness is more that he doesn't want to have a hard conversation with Danny, and just doesn't, right? Like he's just like doesn't want to deal.
Absence of self, like doesn't want to deal with anything. If we could pedal back a little bit, like
please,
he's going to break up with her, and then he finds out that her family is dead, and he like is begrudgingly like calming her down.
I can't break her up with her now. It's
like, oh my god.
So that's kind of the setup. There's two other people. So there's our group of four Americans, and then there's two British people who came separately. Another guy kind of recruited them.
It's Pele's brother, Olaf. What's his name?
Olaf. Ingmar.
Olaf was very close. Ian also watched Frozen today.
I also think there was an Olaf in this movie. I'm almost positive. Yes, Ingmar though. So he brought this this British couple to hang out. Also, there's a conversation when they're like, "Oh, heck, how do you know these people?" And he's like, "Yeah, I used to date Connie." And then like the Simon, the boyfriend's like, "What? Like, no, you didn't." Like, and she was like, "We hung out once." He's like, "Oh, right, we were just friends." And I was like, "Okay, weirdo." There's a lot of red flags. Like sometimes these people are like, you brought it on yourself.
The Swedish are very shady. Like they're very cool and nice, but in that nice coolness, very shady.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little things. They're like, oh, don't worry about that. Oh, that house is for other things. Like, let's go this way.
Said multiple times, Christian says to Danny when he's trying to calm her down, but he's like, like we just have to try and acclimate. It's their culture, which I found so interesting too, because you think about it in the context of they are in like a white European country and they're trying so hard to respect their culture.
Right.
But like it was any other situation on a different continent with
For
a
sure.
different group of people, they'd be like, we're out of here,
Yeah.
you know, like.
Yeah, it's because everyone's wearing white and looks pure. So they're like, what's the worst that could happen?
It's astonishing to me that they weren't immediately uncomfortable that they landed in an essentially Aryan cult.
Yeah, right. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, like once they step into the little like sun barrier that like welcomes them into the commune, and there's like people playing flutes, I'm out of there. I'm gone. Like I wouldn't stay. And then also like you guys are like sharing a room with like
everybody.
45 other like people. It's not
and
happening.
a baby, like
And a baby.
Yeah.
Come on.
No way.
Come on.
I'd draw the line at the baby.
Yeah, I can't sleep like that.
No.
Yeah. Sorry. So, because I said I was watching this movie right now, or I just have it playing in the background. And I'm at the portion where they're like getting greeted by all the Swedes. And there's a bunch of people just in like civilian clothes too. So where are those people at?
Well, and it's funny. There's one part that always sticks out to me. So this, from our perspective as a viewer, we really don't see much of any kind of modern amenities.
Yeah.
Like there's no like pop culture, not a lot that I can think of. But there's one weird point where somebody comes into the room, a Swedish girl, when they're all hanging out, and she's like, the kids are watching Austin Powers in like the back house. If you guys want to come watch it. I'm like, oh, they watch Austin Powers? Like,
dude, that made me laugh so hard.
For some reason, that struck me as just so Swedish. Like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
The fact that Austin Powers came out like 30 years ago at this point, it's like super dated and like so cheesy. I'm like, that's such a like Swedish thing to be like, yeah, I'm gonna, like, that's what we're gonna watch.
Yeah, like how isolated are they from like the rest of the world? They're watching Austin Powers. They couldn't watch like, I don't know, The Hangover. I don't know.
Why wouldn't you watch Austin Powers, Ian? When was the last time you watched that movie?
Actually, I love Austin Powers, and I was Austin Powers for Halloween in first grade.
Whoa, first grade. That's inappropriate.
Shaggy baby. In first grade for Halloween.
Fembot? Is that what you said?
A fembot. And then my dad was like, that
absolutely
is
not.
Very inappropriate.
But we were kind of talking about them getting there. Right away, they're offered like actual mushrooms. Danny takes a drink because she's a little bit like nervous about it. So I think the drink is supposed to be a little less impactful. But she immediately is not interested in doing drugs. And she's like, no, thanks. I don't think it's, and then everybody else kind of pressures her, and especially like Will Poulter.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going to wait for Danny, so you just go ahead.
Dude, we can't take him at different times. They'll be totally separate trips.
You want to wait for us then?
You know what? It's fine. It's fine.
Babe,
I'm ready. No,
don't
it's
feel
okay.
rushed.
I don't. It's fine. I'm ready.
Are you sure?
Yes, Mark. Thank you.
She decides to do it with them. It's going pretty well. I think the first trip scene is like one of the most uncomfortable for me. The way Will Poulter acts is like really, really hard.
I love
it's
it.
like so
Such
stressful
a
to me.
buzzkill.
Oh my gosh.
What time is it?
It's 9 p.m.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
That can't be right. The sky's blue.
It's fine. It's Sweden.
That's not fine. Why is it like that?
It's okay, Mark. It's the midnight sun.
That feels wrong. I don't like that.
Promise you it's okay.
I'm not okay.
Oh, fuck. It's a new person.
What? I don't want new people right now.
No, new people are good, Mark.
Yeah, Will Poulter's just like, you guys are like my family.
That's what it
like
is.
literally my family. And of course that makes her, she's like a month or two off, like I think from her parents, like basically her whole family passing away in one swing. So she kind of freaks out when she hears about family. Yeah, because she's actually she's like kind of rolling with it until the family thing. And that's got the great shot where she looks down at her hand and the hand is like got grass growing through it or from it kind of. That's one of my favorite visuals of the movie, I think. But she kind of runs off and has like a little bit of a panic attack and starts running around the grounds. This is also the first time we see how they do the visuals for the mushrooms. I love how they do the visuals for the mushrooms in this, where kind of everything in the background or like the flowers have an effect, but the center, like the subject
everything's moving
is
or
normal.
like cascading a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you see like she like runs into like this outhouse type thing and she sees like her sister in the background.
Yeah. So she's super paranoid. She sees a big group laughing at her. Then she runs into Ingmar, who's also super cool. But yeah, he's like, they're not laughing at you and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is like one of the moments, the first time watching this, where you're not really sure what's going on. And it does feel like Danny could be like in danger a little bit, because there is you're not sure if you can trust the Swedes yet.
It'll be interesting to watch on another view, just to see like how they kind of play it out.
Yeah, it's kind of like Guy, where once you know they have ulterior motives, you can read things much differently, which is really fun. But Adriana, you kind of mentioned that they're like this Aryan like cult, you know, and there's like a little bit of like one kind of ethnicity and thing going on. There's like a hint about like Nazi influences. Like Josh has like research papers as they are in America still talking about their trip. And on one of the research papers, it says the secret Nazi language of the Utark, I don't know how to say it, Uthark. This was like a folder he had that looked like was part of his like stack of research papers.
Right.
But basically, I thought this was interesting. I don't fully get how this, like, what this has to do with the story, but it sounds like Adriana was like kind of on this already. The Utark is the runic language that the Swedish would use. And like at one point they reference a tablet that they call the Elder Futark. And the Elder Futark, it was like an ancient version of the Utark, I guess, like the original one. But basically there was like an attached like mysticism to the runic language, that it has some sort of spiritual, mystical meaning and something like elevated.
Yeah.
And I guess the Nazis were super interested in real life about this runic language and unlocking powers, where there were like projects to see if that could be utilized for mystical.
Like Hitler was super into that stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I thought that was interesting that they even introduced it, but I'm curious if there's something in the story I haven't picked up on. So, okay. So we've kind of introduced this enough.
Yeah.
They're at the festival now. There's going to be lots of drugs. There's going to be lots of weird ceremonies going on. I'm super interested to hear, Adriana, you seem down on the Swedes. I'm curious, like what?
I didn't say that. I am Swedish.
Oh, excuse me. The Hargas, then the Hargas.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Okay,
I want to hear more about you said that you like this movie less and less the more you watched it. I want to hear what has stood out to you or changed.
I don't know if it's true that I like it less and less. I do still really like the movie. I've seen it like over 10 times. Wow. I would probably watch it again. I guess, yeah. Well, I'm speaking more about the research.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That happened in making this movie that maybe I'm getting too in my head about, you know, right and wrong. And I don't know that I feel down or up on the Swedes themselves, but I just think there's a lot of really dimensional, cultural, and like racial context to get into with this movie, just because it's like we have anthropologists coming from the US and one of whom happens to be a Black man, where, you know, we have so much historic evidence of like, I mean, let's talk about Sweden, right? Like Swedes and going to other countries and kind of doing this same thing of like, you know, and the way that Josh, the researcher, was essentially punished for going too far.
Absolutely.
And taking photos of what they didn't want him to see. And I just think that's sort of a moment for us to all kind of think like, well, that punishment was very like swift and fast, but what would happen if the shoe were on the other foot? And so I guess that's my whole thing with like the context of this commune and this cult is like, as far as their reproductive practices and, you know, the fact that they have this like unclouded person who is a product of incest that is making their Ruby Router, like their oracle. And I just think like there's all this complicated stuff happening, and I have to sit back and think like, well, this is like this insular community, and they think that they're doing these things because it's the right way, but it's just way too complicated to fall in or out of line with them, with this community. So that's my long answer.
No, absolutely. And I completely, I get that.
I wonder, I'm like, was that intentional? That, you know, was this something that the audience, because I do think like as a whole, this plot and this movie do sort of force us to think about the context of the skeleton, so to speak, in Sweden's closet and Europe's closet.
Right. Well, yeah. I also wonder, because they're going to sacrifice him anyway. Like, they're letting him do all this research. They're letting him take the photos and interview the people. They were going to kill him regardless. And I think he just, like you said, took one step too far, and by taking pictures of this like sacred text that they're just like, you're done. Sorry, bud.
They just died earlier than they would.
Exactly. Than probably what they anticipated. I'm assuming, again.
Because they needed 4 outsiders for the ceremony, so I assume they were cooked.
They were cooked. Yeah, they were donezo.
That's so interesting. I actually hadn't thought about that. Like why didn't they just kind of let him do? And maybe that was in the event that he did escape or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think they felt that palpable notion that these characters were kind of getting uncomfortable, but it seemed like Josh was so in it for the long haul. Like he was just going to deal with it.
Yeah, he had blinders on for sure.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it. It's because the group itself, the group of friends starts to crack because Christian is a dumb fuck who decides to steal Josh's thesis. This is
the craziest.
And then it becomes competitive, and then Josh feels the need to get a leg up on the research by taking pictures of a fucking book he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
True.
And it's Christian's fault. Like it's just it's his fault. But an interesting perspective that I did not think about until just now, which I appreciate.
But yeah, like Ian said, Josh is doing a research paper on Midsommar specifically.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like he hadn't specifically committed to doing this specific festival of Midsommar, but it's clear that like he's deep in this, and it sounds like he's been like invested in this like path for his research paper for a long time, and this is like his big final for college. It sounds like, so kind of a defining thing.
I'm going to do my thesis here. If you're going to do it here too, I'm open to collaborating. And if not, I guess we can both do separate theses on the Hårgas.
Speaking as someone who like copied a lot of people's homework, like I can only imagine how frustrating that was for Josh.
I just think it's his defiant attitude of like, oh, well, you know, I mean, I'm open to collaboration, and I'm just telling you out of like, I know I don't have to. It's like, first of all, you are the worst liar in the world. You're so like, the thread through the movie is Christian is a bad liar and dumb. But also it's like, who are you fooling? You're trying so hard to fool yourself that you're like not doing a shady thing.
Yeah.
And you're just being a butthead. He's like such a butthead.
Such a butthead. Also, it's
literally,
sorry, we're skipping around, but it's so funny when Josh disappears and they're like, someone took the book.
Yeah, but Mark wouldn't have done this. Josh, on the other hand, he came to bed with us, and when we woke up, he was gone. And if he did take that book, I just pray you understand, we don't associate as friends of his or collaborators or anything. We would just be so embarrassed to be connected to this in any way, shape, or form.
Christian, into the bear suit you go, my friend. You're done.
Yeah. And what's great about that, too, is one big aspect of this community that they're visiting is that it's very... is socialist the right word? They share everything.
Communist.
There's no idea of like communist. There's no idea of ownership in this community.
Well, communalism.
Communalism.
Yeah.
Very hammer and sickle, these people.
Yeah. I don't know if they've read Marx.
We don't know.
They're very into like communal responsibility as well on top of that. So there really is like if you're in this community, they've dissolved like the idea of self. So the irony of Christian coming into this community and claiming to want to be a researcher, and then being like, oh, this group I came with, I'm an individual separate from them. Like, where that to them is like not how it works at all. So like I feel like even that like argument to them is like that's like worse than just like owning up to it and admitting like your group fucked up. The fact that you are telling us that you view yourself as an individual, like it's such like a butthead, like dumb thing.
He's a taker.
Like it's so Christian. Yes.
He's a taker. Like, again, this whole community is about shared resources. We till the earth. We go back into the earth. It's just very like, I don't even know the word I'm thinking of, but like he's just like, I'll take what's mine. Oh, that girl is taking eyes at or making eyes at me. I will have her. Or it's just like, it's just, I'll put my fingers in all the pies.
And even like the research paper we're talking about, he doesn't come into it being like, can I share this thing that is like we both have available to us? Right. He comes into me like, I've taken ownership of this. I'm willing to coordinate my thing with your thing if you want. Like, I'm doing this. This is like my thing now. And like, technically I didn't break any rules. So there's nothing you can do to stop me. And like, so either get on board or like get out of the way.
Right. I mean, he really is. I mean, other than the fact that like we joked about this, yes, his name is Christian. We get it.
Yeah.
But also he is like the total embodiment of like the rest of the world's perspective of Americans is this like individualistic, like unopen, kind of like lacking critical thinking. Like he is that embodiment. So
it's kind of like, and I can't figure out the best way to say it, but the way I kept coming back to it was it's like American like cultural arrogance that all these people have in different ways. But it's like they come into this other world as like visitors where they know they're coming in. Like Pell has told them like, this is a very sacred thing for us. This is like something we've done for a very long time. Like you're a visitor. I want you to be visitors for this. I think Will Poulter is the worst offender of this. One scene I think really highlights this. On the ceremony grounds, there's a tree, an old tree.
It's their cemetery.
It's their cemetery, right.
Yep. And so it's super sacred to them. And the three friends, a group of the guys come, including Will Poulter. And as they're walking up to the scene, there's clearly a ceremony going on at the tree where they're dumping the ashes while they walk up. So they easily could have looked over and seen any sense of like any sort of like awareness. They would have realized there was something special happening with that tree. And they don't notice it at all. And then Will Poulter wanders off to pee, and he ends up peeing on the ancestor tree.
Fuck, dude, okay.
You pissed on the ancestral tree.
The tree? So
yes.
So what? I didn't know.
No, it's that tree. It's tied to all of our dead.
It's a dead tree, though. It's dead.
Yeah, I know, but it's important to us.
I just had to pee. I didn't know it was special.
Is that one Olaf?
I'm pretty sure that's Olaf.
Honestly, feel like I think
I'm right.
Let's
finally
flips out like to the point where he's like convulsing. He's like,
his name's Ulf.
Ulf. Okay. Ulf. So Ulf freaks out. Like he's convulsing. He's like tears streaming down his face because it's just a complete.
He's swearing. Nobody like cusses, but he's like fucking these fucking piece of shit kids.
He just the complete disregard is just it's fascinating to me. Just a fascinating character study of just complete like obliviousness. Just I couldn't care less.
Mocks everything he can. Right. Everything's a joke that he's like undercutting any kind of like meaning to. To me, that totally represents this like idea of like American ignorance, where we're not ignorant because we didn't have an opportunity to pay attention and learn. Like so much of it is like willful ignorance. We're like, ironically, Will Poulter,
right?
Will Poulter ignorance.
Yeah, I think this movie. I think this is a revenge movie on American ignorance. This movie,
but yeah, that scene is always like super disturbing and makes it extra satisfying when Will Poulter ends up getting his.
I will say though, real quick, I did miss him after he was no longer in the movie because he did provide that like levity, throughout the whole film, which, as crass and stupid as he is, he did have some great lines.
Do they have ticks in Sweden?
Sweden has a tick problem.
What? No, they don't. Do they really?
Actually, it is a big problem. Last summer, a record number of people got tick-borne encephalitis.
What the fuck? Are you serious?
Yeah, both my grandparents died from ticks. Had to give them a closed casket funeral.
Okay, Josh, I actually have an uncle with Lyme. And believe me, if you ask him, it was not worth the pleasant picnic in the park.
We got to talk about Astupa. Ättestupa.
Ättestupa.
Thank you.
Is that the first ceremony?
This is the first sacrifice.
The real groundbreaker.
Yeah.
First.
This shocked me.
Yeah, you just watched this the first time, Ian, right?
Yeah. So,
did you know this scene was in it at all?
Okay. I think I told you this before, Caleb, is that I've read the Wikipedia entry to this movie because I was very interested in what this movie was about, but I was too scared to watch it. And I read the Wikipedia and then I YouTubed this scene like a year ago. So I saw this scene and I was so shocked. I know it's crazy because it's probably the most disturbing of all the sacrifices, but it's also like the most beautifully shot because when you first come, it's that wide shot. It's like this beautiful, like, I don't even know where they're at. Like, because you feel like it's just forest everywhere, but they come upon this, like, almost like this granite, like sandstone cliffside, and it's just like sand everywhere, and everyone's in white. And then there's this wide shot where this Swedish boy with like a stick, like, looks to camera, and you're just like, wow, this is so perfect. It's so beautiful. And then you see these people getting rolled up to the edge of the cliff. And it's just so funny because I'm like, what did you think was going to happen? Like from Christian's and Danny's and Josh's perspective.
And they do some like cool dance before.
And they cut their hand. They wipe the stuff on the rune.
That's the Elder Plutarch, I think
Right. Is it? Okay.
I think so.
Also, important to note that Mark is not in this scene because Mark like tripped too hard, so he like went to go and took a nap, which I was kind of bummed. I wanted to get his reaction. But yeah, this is like the most like head trauma I've ever seen on film. You got these two, like you said earlier, Caleb, the way these people kind of view age. So these people are at the winter stage of their lives. They're at 72, which means they get sacrificed and they jump off a cliff and
they give of themselves.
Yeah, they give them themselves. Also, it's funny to note too, early in the movie, because Pele is like basically telling the group like, oh, from like 18 to whatever, you're in this season, blah 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 blah. And then she says like, so what happens at 72 or after 72? And he just does like the death thing, but he's like very like cute about it. Yeah. And then she just like shrugs like, okay, what does that mean?
Everybody laughs.
So cute, like that scene. I'm like, Pelé's hot, and like he's totally flirting with Danny, and I love it.
I'm pretty sure he found his May Queen, if I'm,
Well, we think of life like the seasons. So you're a child until you're 18, and that's spring. And then at some point, we all do our pilgrimage, which is between 18 and 36, and that's summer. And then from 36 to 54, we're a working age, which is fall. And then finally, from 54 to 72, you become a mentor.
What happens at 72?
But
and when he gives her the
drawing,
the drawing for her birthday, such a cute moment.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Oh my!
I would love to get a portrait taken of me unknowingly.
Yes. So yeah, they're
so these people fall off the cliff.
It's Christian forgets her birthday too.
Yeah.
I'll just add that since we're on the birthday.
Awful.
So then, very cool. Pell swoops in, is like, here's this beautiful portrait of you. I just sketched it up real quick.
Yeah.
And just Danny's reaction through this entire scene too is just it's so gut wrenching because you can like she's like shaking, like her head goes up to the cliffside, like she knows what's gonna happen. She's like already ready to be re-traumatized, and then you have these two people basically falling one after another. And to make matters worse, the male elder falls on his legs, so he's still alive. But don't worry, because they have a huge hammer in order to smash his face. They have a mallet, which I heard is a real thing, like in Viking practices. So they would do that to the elders. Yeah, they would just smash them to bits.
That's hardcore, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the visceral nature of the blue granite and then their blue dress, the elders are both dressed in like an indigo sort of color, and they're like matching the earth so beautifully, which it's like, it's one of those moments where you're like, oh no, I'm getting like, my cult brainwashing is working because this is so like, they're so like one with this moment.
Exactly.
And I thought it was interesting. Danny was wearing the same shade of blue.
Yes.
Nice.
And my other piece is that Simon and Connie like viscerally freak out. They're
the only
yelling.
ones.
Oh, nice.
Fuck this! You're fucked! Fuck! You're the fucking standing there watching! What the fuck is wrong with you?
You have a shot.
Freak! No! Fucking
Please!
leave her alone!
Please listen to
What?
me. Let me explain.
Explain what?
I think it's interesting because it's like Josh knows what it is before going into it.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
so-
fucked up he doesn't tell Danny when knowing what she's like in the middle of dealing with.
And that just shows like how little this group of people cares about Danny. Like,
Right.
that
Absolutely.
they're just so interested in their own endeavors that like they wouldn't say like, hey Danny, I think you should really like not come to this.
Adrian, that's so true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Especially because she explicitly asks, what
And
is
he
it?
just smirks at
And
her.
he
He's
just-
like,
exactly. I didn't even
and
think.
it's like, ooh, man,
It's
you're
so-
disgusting.
They have this whole ideal of like, shouldn't she be over this by now? Like,
Right.
it's just like her trauma is so inconvenient.
Yes.
To them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like so painful for me. And it's just like so selfish. But so he knows. So I get why he's not like protesting or being,
Right.
affected. And then Christian, I think Christian is such a follower. Like, well, Josh is cool with this. And like, he knew what it was. So like, I'm going to just be like, this like, I'm just here or whatever.
Right.
But Danny, of all people, Danny could have a very like solidly loud, traumatically informed reaction. And she just continues to watch.
Yeah.
And I think like it's another one of those pieces that kind of says like Danny's maybe going to be like sticking around here because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's throughout, like, I mean, all of introduction to this culture, she's like really polite and respectful.
She's
Even
the
though
only one that helps out. Yeah.
yeah, and she like says thank you and like, really like speaks to people and asks good questions and like just participates. And she even says herself, she's like, I'm not an anthropologist. Like
Right. Mhm.
she's the one who's the most outsider, but she is the one who's like most comfortably able to just kind of like watch this happen. So I thought that was really interesting. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, just seeing her witness that.
Foreshadowing, kind of. Yeah, and it's very embarrassing, even though it's like one of those things where morally I understand and agree, and it would be horrifying to see, but it's so embarrassing watching them try to convince these people who've like lived their whole lives here and have zero qualms with what's happening, but just their belief that they can convince all these people to change their views of death. Why would they? They're convinced though that they're right.
And it's interesting too because I think it's Christian that says this line.
I'm trying to keep an open mind, though. It's cultural, We stick our elders in nursing homes. I'm sure they find that disturbing.
Just like not like bringing anything like to the table. You know what I mean? He's just like trying to show that he's like above. He's like, I'm cool with this. This is cool. This is fine. This is fine. Again, I guess we'll be doing this throughout the entire episode of just little breadcrumbs of how bad of a person he is. But
yeah, Christian sucks.
Yeah,
he
That's
really does.
the point.
Yeah, and he's constantly, again, the Christian insists on like separating himself from her every time she needs like reassurance.
Just him saying like, oh, we put our elders in nursing homes. Like, and it's like, you're speaking to somebody whose parents are both dead.
Right.
Like,
Rude.
Can you just be like a little bit like, think about the context?
Right.
Like, dude, why are you saying that to her? Like, she doesn't even have that luxury.
Yeah.
He'd be lucky.
It's like, I know
too.
you're not going to have old parents, but like mine, I will not put in a home. Come on.
I'm going to make them jump off of a cliff.
Yeah.
And then also totally something he's never once in his whole life cared about.
Oh, yeah,
but just is
absolutely.
a convenient way to counter what's, to justify this thing that in reality probably goes against any moral he's claimed to have.
Totally.
Because he's just such like a little weenie. He really is.
Weenie.
Little squared weenie. It's like one of the most satisfying like comeuppances of like any movie.
It's interesting too. So that Pele is the only character like one of the only characters that like comes to her in times of need too, and like tries to like just listens to her, like listens to her talk about what she's seeing, like especially after the first sacrifice, where she's like completely like out of her mind, just like traumatized about what happened. He's like the only one that comes in and just says like, no, like I'll listen to you and I'll talk to you about what's happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like the only one that will have a conversation with her about what she's how she's feeling.
Yeah.
And he
not just tell her
also-
how to feel. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, and
that too.
He also doesn't get scared of her grief, even though she's obviously like doesn't want to talk to him about these things.
Because I lost my parents too.
What? No, Pele,
yes,
that
yes.
is not what I'm talking about.
I
I'm
know
not
that's not what
talking
you're
about
talking
my
about,
family.
but
I'm
I
not
lost
talking
my
about
parents
my
when
family.
I was
I'm
a
talking
little boy.
about...
They burned up
no,
in a
I
fire.
wasn't talking about that.
My parents, they burned up in a fire, and I became technically an orphan. So believe me when I tell you that I know what it's like, because I do. I really, really do.
Or I think for her character, she kind of needs somebody to be like a little bit like, I am with you and I'm here, and like we're gonna have this conversation even though it's not easy. And he is just so antithetical to how she's treated by Christian.
Right.
Another thing I wanted to touch on really quick, Adriana, you mentioned that there's like some foreshadowing that Danny's going to end up kind of integrating and that she's like primed to. Another thing I read about, it's not my original thing, but she says Christian the same way the Swedish community does. She says Christian from the very beginning. So just another little clue that she's maybe more similar to them than the others.
No, sorry. I was going to say there's a lot of hints, like especially in the beginning of the movie, where it seems like almost like this is supposed to be predestined. Like she was supposed to come to this community, supposed to become the May Queen. It's like it's a little like, it almost feels, like destined for, like this was her destiny to find these people, which is cool. I love that.
Yeah, a little Eyes Wide Shut vibe in that way, where everything feels like it's being orchestrated a little bit.
Again, Pele's the Pied Piper.
Yeah. And people online kind of felt that too, Ian. And I guess in Hereditary, I'm not as familiar with Hereditary, but I guess in Hereditary, it turns out that everything in the movie had been orchestrated by the cult to set up the ending of the ceremony, whatever they're doing in the treehouse. Crazy movie, but I need to watch it again. But this one specifically, Ari Aster was asked if the community set up everything, because there was a strong theory that Pell was responsible for the death of her family.
Oh, interesting.
To trigger the events to bring her to Sweden. But Ari Aster specifically said that's not the case. And that he had no part in their death. That was that just fit in with what he was looking for. But yeah, so I guess we can jump back to the plot for a little while. This is where it gets a little bit hazier to me.
The bodies start piling up a little bit.
Yeah. So the suicides happen. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the initial sacrifice happens of the two elders, and then immediately Connie and Simon, the English couple, are like, we're out of here. We're leaving. And you never hear from them again. You see that Connie kind of basically trying to find her boyfriend, and then one of the elders being like, he left, like he'll come back for you. We have a very small truck.
Such a convoluted story as to why he abandoned her.
Right.
Sorry, but I can say what happened. Her boyfriend called the landline from the train station and calmed Connie down. And she begged our pardon, and I drove her to meet him.
And this is also a point where Danny's character starts having trouble sleeping, and takes sleeping pills from Josh, and she has like almost like a hallucination the first night she takes one, where she envisions all the boys leaving her and like to basically be abandoned.
And that subconsciously she knows those aren't her friends, really.
Right.
That's how I view it too.
Right.
Deep down, she can tell what's going on.
Right. And that same night is the first, speaking of runes, that this woman places like almost like a love rune underneath Christian's bed, basically marking him as like future mate, because you find out earlier in the movie that along with the sacrifices, which they don't touch on, but they do say that like, oh yeah, sometimes we'll bring in strangers to basically pregnant our women so we avoid incest.
Which is so funny because Christian is the one asking that, and he's literally been brought there to
also
do that.
asks it while Danny's with him. He's like, so what's the deal with like the sex? Like, what's happening here?
Well, he's in like robot, like he's like, I'm researcher now. Like, I must beep beep. Like, I have to do this.
On the subject of couples, actually, is there ever an issue here with incest? Sorry, I mean, small communities.
Well, the bloodlines are very well preserved, so the elders must approve mates. Cousins can sometimes mate, but we do respect the incest taboo. So we often need to invite outside people,
But yeah, you were talking about the deaths. We start losing people at this point, and they all kind of go down for their own reasons. Mark P's on the ancestor tree, and that leads to his demise, and he gets turned into a fucking face mask like Hannibal.
Yeah, the dude where Christian gets marked for sex, Mark gets marked for death. Like the dude, Ulf, freaking just like mean mugs because it's amazing. That's again having like the summer solstice or whatever, basically the no light. It's very discombobulating because you have no idea how long it's been. Like you have no idea how long Connie and Simon have been gone for, but every day they'll have like a supper, and Mark is just like, oh, this guy's like staring at me. I hope he doesn't kill me. In that same scene, this woman comes up and is like, hey, follow me into this cabin. And then
Austin Powers lady
is like, hey, follow me to this cabin. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll again, because he's just like
thinks he's getting laid.
He thinks he's gonna, he's probably gonna get laid or whatever. And then you never hear from him.
Do you wonder though if I think her name's Inga when she takes Mark, she's like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
And then, we know he gets killed along the way. But do you wonder if they were approved to mate? Yeah, because
mated first.
She's kind of like after him. She's around him sort of the whole movie. And I did wonder, like, well, did they use him before they killed him for his?
I think Ulf. I was gonna say, I think Ulf would take offense to that. I think he'd actually really fucking pissed off.
True, yeah.
But also,
they say the elders have to approve the mates too. So I wonder if they were all being judged.
That's true because it's almost like very ceremonial, the mating process.
So, that seems wild, dude.
I'm like, is it always that ceremonial? Like every time? But maybe
I don't know.
It's part of the bear ceremony.
Yeah, I don't know.
A lot of rigmarole.
I know. Just come on, guys.
We need like 10 people.
I know. You got to bring like literally like a village, small village. Like come
a village.
Populate.
Like I don't even know that many people.
I know.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Okay, well.
Yeah, and then the final death is Josh, who's the researcher, and the people there were super welcoming to him, like way more than you'd expect, and they even let him look at their like holy book basically. But he ends up sneaking into that room to take pictures of their holy book. He was specifically told not to, but somebody saw it coming and is waiting for him, and then he gets smashed by the hammer, the big giant hammer, by somebody who's wearing the face of Mark, which was
and naked.
Hanging.
You see two dongs in this movie, just in case you're wondering.
Is that
it's like
I'm pretty
lots
sure.
of drawings, as Mark points out.
Yeah, what do you do when you need to jerk off? Especially with all these dicks on the wall. There's a lot of dicks. Oh, you got some pussy paintings too.
Yeah, but Josh gets taken out hard. That was actually really, really hard to watch too, because you hear him being like groaning.
I hate that. Yeah,
that's really hard.
I think it's the only death you see of the four outsiders who get killed or die.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is his
That's true.
death so like
visceral?
Yeah, the visual and like I don't know. It just because it's like you see exactly what happens. It's like he is being punished for trying too hard to like see too much and take these photos and
You'd say of the three male Americans in this movie, like he's probably like the least deserving of that fate. Like in a sense, right? Like he's like, we as the audience didn't need
best person.
Right.
He seems like the least shitty person in general.
Can I take a photograph?
What?
Photograph.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, sorry.
Absolutely not.
Like Kelly brought an anthropologist who wants to write a
true.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's just like kind of punishing him for like. I mean, he was like upfront about it. He didn't like hide that he was doing that the whole time. But I really think it does prove that essentially all of the people you bring are going to be probably used as sacrifices, or they're going to stay indoctrinated into the cult because
and you know
can't
what?
Leave. You can't leave after seeing that.
You know what's fucked up too? They were not going to mark him as like, you're going to have sex with these women, by the way. There's no way.
Exactly.
There's no way.
Yeah.
So that actually hurts.
Yeah, there's definitely ethno
like purity to it
thing.
for sure.
Yeah,
I kind of hate that they don't name it and they don't say it, but it's like it's so obvious that we can all. But like the discourse around this movie, like the fact that it doesn't focus on it that much, is kind of wild to me.
It's
like,
very hand wavy, or even if that, it's, like you said, does not even touch it at all.
Right.
And I wonder if showing that Nazi like document referencing the interest in the elder Futark, I wonder if that is supposed to kind of draw eyes towards the whiteness and the ethno-purity side of it. Okay, so they have a big dinner before the May festival and the May dance and the May pole, and in that dinner, Christian eats pie that has a pubic hair in it from the redheaded girl, and then also drinks drink that is suspiciously, reddish.
Colored,
Yep, which I kind of... Yes, I was going to say a vodka blush. It looks very similar to the vodka blush. I did mention this in the Rosemary's episode.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's
not the same ingredients, though. I don't think
vodka blush.
We don't know.
Any birthing ritual there, it makes sense that there's like blood involved at some point. And then Danny is getting ready to do the May dance. She does the May dance. They're tripping. Jack's having a really bad trip. I love the part where he's like,
"What does it do?"
Oh, it breaks down your defenses and opens you for the influence.
Danny ends up winning the May dance. She becomes the May Queen. She gets done up in this amazing flower crown, and she's going through all these ceremonies. At the same time, Jack is being pulled deeper and deeper into like the love cave, and he ends up having sex with the redhead girl who's been courting him in a room. And this scene's wild with all these naked ladies. Though it's like almost like the whole group of ladies.
They were helping out. Let's just say,
they share everything in this culture.
It was a team effort.
Yeah. I love the part where the lady starts pushing it. It's
literally, I cackled. I was just like, that is out of control.
They're like hurry up, dude.
So hard for that character because I feel like I'm like, yeah, of course he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right. Again,
his face the whole time is just like, he's just like, fuck, like, yeah.
Not to be crass, but like, I'm surprised, like he was able to do it under the influence. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think that my head would be like in the clouds.
I think the big smoke he breathes is like a little bit of like a Viagra.
It's Blue Chew? Oh, okay.
I think it's got a little something.
Gotcha.
Breathe in for your vitality.
Even though he's there with his girlfriend Danny, who hears this weird noise coming from that house because they're all making the same sex noise together. So it's this big chorus of weird noises. Danny sees Christian in the sex orgy thing, and she has another panic attack and runs off. And then Christian finishes, and then he's butt naked. And this scene's also hilarious. And he just starts running around in circles, basically naked. And I don't even, where does he end up at that?
He ends up in the chicken coop where he finds the British kid. Dude, where he finds that was
Eagle.
I couldn't.
Who's still alive, right?
Yeah.
His lungs are still pumping.
I don't know. I couldn't tell if that
was
a visual distortion from the mushrooms or hallucinogens because I mean,
Christian's in deep right now. And
when his lungs are pulled out of his back and he's hanging by, like, there's no way you could be alive.
I will say,
like plants growing out of him.
In the Wikipedia entry, it says barely alive.
Creepy. I looked into the whole blood eagle thing and I thought it was like an execution method, but
also
maybe
flower eyes.
What were they doing back in the day? Blood? Like, what? You guys are crazy.
Yeah, well,
not cool, Vikings.
I know.
The May Queen ceremony continues. They have the dinner. And so in this case, Danny's the guest of honor. So everybody's following her lead. And it's just a really, really beautiful moment where up until this point, Danny has always been somebody in the background and kind of treated like somebody in the background.
it's interesting because at that moment is when she's actually she has like authority of her life or control, some semblance of control. And also like the very end, the big like climactic part too, where you're like, oh, like she's able to make the decision anyway. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there has been a yellow house in the background that they are going to burn down, and they need 4 outsiders, 4 people from the community, and then the May Queen gets to pick one person out of like 2 or something. You mentioned Mark being the jester. They dress him like a jester for the burning. Yeah. Okay, so to wrap it up, and then everybody jump in, please.
Mm-hmm. Sorry,
they burn it down, but before that, Danny has to pick the person who's the rando and the May Queen's pick, and she.
Sorry, I have to interject because there's like, okay, you got to choose Christian or this random ball we're gonna pull, and I laughed so hard because it's just like a what do you call it? Like a lottery thing where they just like.
But instead of numbers on the balls, it's like ruin marks.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Okay. Sorry, continue. Go.
No, I love it. Yeah, so she picks Christian, and that kind of symbolically and literally kind of completes her transformation into somebody who is now part of a family. She lost her family originally. She was trying to take on this new family with Christian and maybe his friends, but specifically with Christian. And now she's found a community that truly accepts her. And it's, in my opinion, a beautiful ending for Danny. And I love it so much. And we get to watch Christian burn in his bear suit.
Also just helplessly burned too, because he's drugged. He's paralyzed.
Yes. Yeah, dude.
Horrifying.
It's so messed up. But then there's 2 guys who are picked to be burned alive from the community. And one of them is Angmar, because his people ended up sucking. And Oof are 2 favorites. And luckily Pell gets okay. Pell's okay because Danny ended up becoming the May Queen, basically. That's I think what saved him.
Right.
But yeah, Angmar's people failed, so he has to die. Oof has to die.
Like volunteers.
Yeah, I think I think he's like, so they're like whatever.
And so then they give him, it's hilarious. They give him this like sap, and they're like, eat of the elder tree to feel no pain, to feel no fear, the sap. And then the second the fire hits him, it's like blood curdling, horrible screams. And the music also, it's like a pretty like happy celebratory music, and it dips into like pure like horror sound while the yells start. But then the community starts matching his yell, the same thing they did for Danny when she was wailing. And then the music comes back to like cheerful, and then we get the shot of Danny where she's like crying, and then slowly a smile comes to her face, and that's the movie.
Crazy.
Woo. What are we supposed to take of the Hårga? Like is the film indifferent and just portraying it, and it's up to us to give like meaning to it?
That's the only community or the only people in this movie that offer Danny any like semblance of a humanity or anything, right? Like, while I think it's horrifying what this community does every 90 years, I'm also just like, hey, she's loving, she cracked a smile at the end. She's like, they've embraced her, like, because in that situation at the very end, she can't be like, all right, bye guys, I'm out of here. Like, in my head, I'm like, she's part of the community for life.
Totally. Yeah, I think with the Hårga, like, there are certain things that Danny experiences that are so outside of like the culture that she's experienced in the US and with her peers, like this like communal feeling of like viscerally and outwardly feeling your emotions, which like if we think about American culture, it's like, I think quite stoic in our emotions. Like, it's really uncomfortable to see somebody cry. It's like we laugh when people are in pain, and you can see that like Danny is literally, when she cries, she is like gagging, holding it in. Like in the plane, we see her like holding her throat, and we see it throughout the movie. She's just like literally holding this thing in. And so I think it's like, of course, to see a culture that allows her to feel something fully and allow people to partake in that feeling with you, it's like, of course we feel refreshed seeing that. And then on the other hand, like, there are parts of this culture that are 100% not cool. I felt really uncomfortable with the fact that they like essentially drugged Christian and like had him mate with Maya.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't consensual. the Hårgas, they give of themselves is like the way they say it, where they're sacrificing themselves to the earth. But those people are living in this cycle of life that is their understanding and their agreement with nature and with their community. But to take outsiders and use them as sacrifices, like, I don't agree with that. And even though I'm like, yeah, Christian sucks, like, what a butthead, like, is it like pleasurable in a weird way to see him get killed at the end? Like, unfortunately, yeah, but it's like, is it right? No. So I think just like the Americans, they have a multitude of ways that we can like access their culture and judge them. And so it's really a complicated question.
Yeah, I think also at the end of the day, there's no transparency to why they brought those people there. They're like, you're just gonna hang out with us. There needs to be a communication that we're gonna kill you. Like, so if you're down to go, you should come. Right. There needs to be an open dialogue. So I feel like the way they trick them into coming, I think actually is uncool.
Yeah, or just like bring Danny because she's going to be the queen. Don't bring the other people.
Right.
Just be like, look, it's not working out for you here. I have a place for you.
Right.
You're going to be the queen and it's going to work out.
It's going to be sick, I promise. Yeah. You like crying alone? I don't.
Yeah. You've been crying alone a lot, I've noticed. Like, do you want to come here and cry with other people?
Yeah, I see that. One interesting thing, too, that I heard, Ari Aster refers to this as a fairy tale.
Oh, absolutely. So it feels like one.
This is like, yeah, right? Like,
well, sorry, at the beginning of the movie, when it gives you kind of that tapestry of essentially the plot of the movie, and then almost opens like curtains. So it almost like looks like you're going into like a play setting or some type of, like you said, like some type of fairy tale. And there's like little tidbits throughout the movie too. Like, for example, like the sacrificed bodies at the end are stuffed with like straw. And there's like little Wizard of Oz like inklings like throughout the movie, like especially like in Danny's family home and in her like dorm room, wherever. So yeah, I definitely, again, and also it's Swedish. So of course it feels like a fairy tale.
Wait, what Wizard of Oz inklings did you get?
Like, there's like there's like pictures of the straw man. Why am I?
No way! Yeah, the scarecrow.
Yeah, and again, it happens like at the beginning of the movie, which is like the darkest lit part of the film, so you can't see anything.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
There's also next to the parents' bedroom is a picture of Danny, like a graduation photo that has a crown of flowers around it too. It's like another like weird, like feels like predestined to happen almost.
There's another painting in Danny's apartment, I want to say, one of the apartments, but it's a bear, and it's like kind of bowing to a little girl with a crown on her head, which is definitely like a foreshadow of the Christian being the bear and her being the May Queen at the end. It's cool that you saw those references to Wizard of Oz, because one thing that stood out to me after I heard the fairy tale thing was there is a very similar kind of effect that is done in Wizard of Oz and in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I think there's like a lot of parallels to Willy Wonka, actually, like the kids getting picked off one by one, the the bad morals, and like these like kids coming in with their worldview and not being able to like follow the rules of this different world and things. But specifically, you mentioned the beginning being really dark. Wizard of Oz famously starts in black and white, and then once she gets to Oz, it becomes colorful. There's a similar effect with how everything is dark indoors or nighttime with Danny at the beginning of the movie. And then once we get to the Hårga resort retreat, it's like the movie opens up into color almost.
Right. Yeah.
But those stood out to me as like two parallels that were kind of surprising. But the more I thought about it, the more it kind of made sense and seemed like almost, now that you mentioned the Wizard of Oz thing, almost definitely on purpose.
Yeah, it feels like it for sure. Yeah, again, like this movie like is like so visually delicious too. Like a lot, again, like the white shots, the pops of color, like I feel like the color scheme is so like earth tony, but then you get the pops of color like from like the sacrificial barn, the yellow triangular barn. Like as the movie goes on, the commune people start to have more color stitched into their clothes, like a lot of like reds and blues and yellows, which I thought was really cool. And last thing about the clothes is I was reading this thing, I didn't actually notice it until now. is that Danny's character is constantly like throughout the majority of the movie is wearing clothes that almost don't fit her perfectly. Like they're almost like a little baggy. And it's not until she wears the clothes of the community where everything like fits perfectly and she looks like so beautiful. Again, it's just like another marker of like, you belong here, like you fit in here, which I thought was just like, again, another like really cool visual representation of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. One really interesting thing I learned, the old man in the first ceremony they see where he has to get his head smashed again with the Acme hammer. His name is Bjorn Andersson in real life. However you say that correctly is what I'm trying to say. And he was actually really weirdly like the first teen idol in like the world. I watched the trailer for the documentary about him, but apparently he was like handpicked as like being like a beautiful kid. And then this guy just made him famous for being like beautiful kid.
What?
And there's like a documentary called, I think it's called The Most Beautiful Boy. And yeah, the most beautiful boy in the world. And it's just all about his like horrible life being like, I don't want to say exploited, but it seems like his like, he just got kind of taken by this guy.
He's so pretty. He looks like Jodie Foster.
He was a very handsome kid. He's a little bit of Bowie sometimes.
What was his name? Bjorn what?
Bjorn Andersson.
Poor Bjorn.
Bjorn is like the coolest name. If I could change my name, it might be Bjorn.
Also, middle-aged Bjorn, very cute.
Even as an old man, he had a
I like him all the way up.
Yeah, no, he seems like a very cool guy. But I thought that was super interesting. So if you're interested in that, it seems really interesting and maybe a little bit sad.
And if you're wondering, he's in a 2005 TV series called The Laser Man, just in case you're wondering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds poignant.
I actually was going to bring that up too. I know we are all hot on the trails of Laser Man.
Like, oh, go ahead, Ian.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say, who are they sacrificing? Is it to like the sun god or like what are they sacrificing to?
Good question.
I understood it as Midsommar is supposed to be like, I'm confused because like I feel like this usually comes more in hand with like earlier like spring festivals, but I guess it's like fertility and like Danny's doing the offering to the land for like a good harvest. And I think because basically like Midsommar signifies it's really, I mean, you're at the highest point of sun, but then from there it all goes, it starts being less and less. And then you get to winter, and winter in that part of the world is very difficult. Yeah. So I think I read it as like these sacrifices are to ensure like a healthy harvest and like a healthy community and like the ability to kind of get through like this dark period of wintertime.
And they do mention that the original May dance started because the black one they call him, which is also interesting when we're getting into the theme.
Yeah, I felt like that was so.
Yes, interesting, but that at one point the black one came to the village and made the girls dance until they died, literally.
Well, the whole thing is like we'd have to really think about what the theory is within the universe of this movie, because like something that I found out through my research is like, so like there are pagan and like prehistoric celebrations of like summer, but like Midsommar celebrated at this time and in this way is actually based around the birthday of John the Baptist. And it is a Christian celebration that began in the Middle Ages. Wow. So I think that was like my whole thing with this like Christian versus pagan and like all of this stuff is I was kind of like, well, a lot of these traditions that they're showing in the movie are actually based in Christian practice and like things like the ättestupa and like some of those more like esoteric practices, those are actually like ancient and like pre-Christian rituals, but overall Midsommar as a celebration is not technically pagan.
Interesting. I know that.
Yeah.
A little bit of like hypocrisy even, or like,
well, it's just misrepresentation maybe. I don't know, like
by the film or purposely by the film.
by by the film, I think not necessarily purposefully, because I think there's like a mix, like there's a mixture of pagan and Christian like ritual. But I just think like, yeah, if you're like looking at it from like a material, like real perspective, it's kind of hard to ascertain what's what.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not to be a nerd, but
no, what a nerd.
No, I love
it. This is like a kind of a stretch, but it was more, it stood out to me because of the kind of run of movies we've been on, barring Nightmare on Elm Street, which even that maybe there's some of this too. But like between Jennifer's body, like Rosemary's body, Black Swan.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Body Swan.
Rosemary's body, the swan's body.
Oh, man. But this one I thought was an interesting contrast to those. Like another big theme we hit on was like sacrificing like women's bodies for like success. Like in Jennifer's body, they sacrificed Jennifer to the devil so their band can be famous. In Rosemary's Baby, Guy sacrifices like Rosemary's innocence and her like womb to have success as an actor, moderate success as an actor. Black Swan, she sacrifices her own body, and you could argue like her teachers and instructors are like sacrificing her body for the art. And this one is like kind of the inverse of that, where this culture actually like really like honors the female figure, and like it's actually like a big part of their culture, and it's like equal if not like more important to them than like the male appendage. And there's even a line at the beginning of this where the guy comes out wearing a dress.
I love what you're wearing.
My frock?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, quite girly. Huh? We do this as a tribute in respect of Ymir and because of the nature's hermaphroditic qualities.
Well, and I mean, I think even like openness with all of these depictions of like naked bodies and just like being comfortable with nakedness, I think was like refreshing. It's like it's very antithetical to like the Western understanding of like bodies. I mean, I will say too, I think this movie does a really, really good job of displaying the subtleties of what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody who just doesn't care about you. Just from the beginning, like the way that Christian like speaks and the way Danny like apologizes about everything and like talks herself into being wrong. Like I remember the first time I saw that just being like, oh, I'm not the only person who's experienced this. Like, and I was like, this is the first time I've seen something like this on a movie screen, like that depicts it so well what it feels like. Yeah. So I think like her experience and like all of its subtleties, although it's really depressing to see, it's totally relatable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in a movie that feels like it has a lot of absurdities, the relationship itself feels like the most grounded because it feels like the most true to life.
It's so hard to watch. It's a cool thing it does really well.
Yeah. It explores human romantic relationships really well, which like, I mean, the whole thing was that Ari Aster said he wanted to make a breakup movie, which, you know, I mean, it's like, yeah, that was successful. Like you really portrayed relationship in this day and age, like super well.
Yeah. Just have his friends too. They all kind of fit in a really relatable or like a really authentic archetype of a person. Like Will Poulter too. I feel like I've known like Will Poulter's character, Mark, different times in my life, you know, and I think that's why it's so effective. Cause I'm like, I've been him too.
I was gonna say,
we've
all been Marks.
Yeah.
Really?
Right, Adriana? Say it.
Have I been a Mark? It's like they're trying to make the food gross. I've never said that. I would never disrespect somebody. I never peed on anything inappropriate.
That's true. That's true.
Did pee on a golf course once.
How dare you? Those are sacred grounds. Many men are gonna tee off. Come on.
I've never known Ian to be a Mark.
Thank God.
That's for sure. And Caleb,
he's definitely a Christian.
Did you say? Wait, what did you say?
I said you're definitely a Christian.
Put me in a bear suit.
No,
is an oath.
I'm oath through and through.
He got mad at me once and he just stared at me for a week.
That's so funny.
Real angry.
I will say now, it's like it was very therapeutic to talk about this movie. I feel like, especially from my perspective, because now I'm like, dang, I probably not soon. I won't go Caleb crazy and watch this 6 times, but I'm like this again. I feel like definitely warrants a rewatch. I feel like there's so many little details and tidbits that like so much to chew on.
Like, watch it from different perspectives. Horror movie, historical movie, blah blah blah.
Right, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And a really satisfying revenge movie. I know we've brought up some moral issues with it, but I do really enjoy Danny's story.
Yeah, her arc is like, you feel like
good for her.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
We all want to just say good for her.
One cool thing I learned about this movie, each character has a rune associated with them.
Oh yeah.
And like it's on their clothing and I won't get into like all of them, but like one example is Danny. So Danny has the Ansuz rune, Ansuz, and it kind of looks like a little musical like note, a little bit like a flag. But I guess this one is associated with the gods, particularly Odin, and it represents divine insight, communication, transformation, and a journey of self-realization. So you can imagine how that connects to Danny.
I don't see it.
No, this is it.
Yeah, no, for sure, 100% Danny.
Yeah, it's fun. And so Christian is the Tiwaz rune, Tiwaz, and this is kind of like an arrow pointing upward, and it's linked to the god of war, Tyr or Tyr. It represents sacrifice, duty, and justice, but also implies conflict, suffering, and fate. And he ends up being burned in a bear costume or real bear skin.
A real bear?
Yeah, it's not a costume.
And how hot that would be. Ugh.
This sucks.
Just before the fire, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fresh too. It looks warm. Like they just gutted it before they stick them into it. It's very like Star Wars with the tauntaun.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Yeah, and I love how they're teaching the kids how to remove the intestines as they're emptying the spare out to put a human sacrifice into it. It's like a very sweet, tender moment. And then
He's like, okay, guys.
Yeah, now shove him in.
Little boys, yeah.
Don't worry about hurting him. He's already a goner.
Boys must learn.
Yeah. But yeah, each character and beyond, like I think even the buildings have ruins that are associated with their purpose and stuff.
Last thing I'll say about this movie, like I said earlier, it's like just a complete inverse of what like classic horror movies are. Like, for example, it just takes place in daylight. But also my favorite thing is that it just tells you what the movie's going to be, or like plots it out. Like the entire plot, and then also tells you like the mating ritual is, like the clipping, like it gives you the, like literally they like just pan the camera the entire thing.
That part's great.
Like every character almost knows their fate without knowing it. Like Christian's character, when he's looking at a bear like engulfed in flames, and he's just like unaware of this. Like obviously, how are you supposed to know that? But I feel like every character is essentially like you're told as the viewer basically what's going to happen to them. It feels like very tongue in cheek from Ari Aster, but I just like it as like a narrative structure.
Ian, you were kind of mentioning how they should have known what was coming, that they didn't tell them they were going to get killed, basically.
Right.
I wonder if that is a way of them being like, oh, we kind of did tell you. Like if you were paying attention, you would have seen all these big hints. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Right. Like Christian's character, actually, I was reading about at the end when he's like wearing like the classic commune attire, he actually has runes that I think are marked like death or like sacrifice or something like that. So it's like he's like literally wearing like how his characters will play
garments.
Yeah. Fool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I just have 2 things that I wanted to touch on, and I didn't have a chance. I think there was a little foreshadowing in the moment when they first took mushrooms, and and Mark's being like the buzzkill, and Danny kind of ends up freaking out. But before loses it and kind of ruins it, Danny and Pele are having like this trip.
Oh, interesting.
Like they're on a very similar wavelength, and it's almost, if you're watching the movie, you kind of fall into just being in their little realm where they're both experiencing like the grass, and they're both talking about how they can like watch these plants around them breathe.
Can you feel that? The energy coming up from the earth? Look, the trees too, they're breathing. Nature just knows instinctually how to stay in harmony. Everything just mechanically doing its part.
But like, I thought just the fact that they kind of fell in together was very significant of like what was going to end up happening.
Right.
And then my other piece that, I don't know, I just think it kind of spells out what will happen. I think it's Father Odd, like one of the elders. He says hello to everybody and is kind of like, hi, hi, hi. And then he hugs Danny and he's like, welcome home. So I don't know, for what it's worth, I just thought those like little moments were not only foreshadowing, but I think it's like to watch Danny sort of fall in with these people and like have this comfort and have somebody just be so simply like welcome, or like, you know, we're on the same path of this mushroom trip. Like, and I just like those parts. So I can't leave this without saying,
please,
does he feel like home to you?
Danny, do you feel held by him? Does he feel like home to you?
Does he feel like home to you? It's like the famous line of this movie.
Ian does feel like home to me, but I know that's not what you're actually asking.
I don't know. I
just want to make it
I can't believe we got through this whole thing and didn't say, does he feel like home to you?
And it's so nice for somebody finally just to be like, do you actually like this guy? Like,
yeah,
it seems like everything sucks. Yeah. There's absolutely no rush to finish, but I am gonna pull up reviews. So I wanted to do something a little bit different for this one. So I picked the very first 5-star and the very first half-star review of Midsommar on Letterboxd. So somehow this was the first person to see and review the film. And this honor goes to Marlon Olaskoagoa. The first half-star review, Olaskoagoa, I don't know. Sorry. The person next to me was so bored he was singing I'm Standing Still from the Rocket Man Auditorium playing next to us.
What?
Which is funny, a half-star. And then one more half-star that I thought was kind of easily the worst movie of 2019. I'm not down with the Colts, Kolts. This is not a film anybody should see, especially fans of the Christian faith, because it won't just give you nightmares. It will make you hate yourself. Because I just got of this is not a film anybody should see, especially fans of the Christian faith. Always Lupin. Because it won't just give you nightmares, it will make you hate yourself. Because I just got
Is he in a time loop?
We're not meant to watch these kind of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Respect to you. That's from Joseph Litham.
It's okay, Joseph. You don't need to watch it. It was rated R. What are you doing then?
Joseph, don't go to the movie about the pagan cult.
Yeah.
There's too much nudity probably already. And then to the 5-star. So this is from Heresiarchs. 5 stars. Always great to see a feel-good movie about traveling, recognizing your worth, and wearing fun new accessories as you leave a toxic relationship. Smiley face. Getting rid of a shitty boyfriend can be a real bear.
That's funny. Good job. Good job.
Great review.
Great review.
Like live, laugh, love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hold on. I have 2 now that I want to read because I just read. Okay, so this one is a 4-star review. And it's just, babe, you okay? You've hardly touched your pubic hair pie. Which I thought was very funny. But this is my favorite one. So this is from Brendan O'Hare. The weirdest thing that happened to me when I went to Sweden was when I was at a breakfast buffet and a very round boy walked up to the buffet, lifted up a perfect hard-boiled egg, exclaimed, "Ah, the perfect egg," and then ran away.
Round boy.
Round boy, yeah. Perfect boy.
A perfect round boy found the perfect egg.
Hey, that's Brendo Hare.
Yeah.
Is that the same one who's like hit me or like beat me up?
Beat me.
Or, yeah.
Yes. Have we wrapped up scary movies, Caleb? What's the deal?
Yeah.
How are we feeling about this?
That's a good point. We had our very fun Nightmare on Elm Street episode just dropped as we're reading this. So check that out. It's great. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of doing like horror adjacent movies. Like I don't know. But that's kind of what I was thinking. What do you?
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I think we'll see what happens.
Well, I did have a request for Love Lies Bleeding.
Dude, I love that movie.
I haven't watched it yet, and I'm excited.
Who said it? Who asked?
Victoria De Leon wants to do it. Who was on for Jennifer's Body?
Interesting, because I remember putting that in the group chat with you guys.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of then.
Maybe.
Oh no, this is what I'm talking about. It was our group chat.
Okay.
So you knew about this. The fact you didn't remember is on you.
Good idea, Ian.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear.
The whole tapestry is right in front of you.
This is my plot.
Well, this was so fun. Adriana, thank you for coming on. Did you have fun? Was it as good as you'd hoped as a listener, or was it super?
I hated it.
Yeah, that's what I expected, to be honest.
One and done.
No, I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me. And this is not a funny movie, but I enjoyed my time with you, and it was good.
You're always welcome back.
Yeah, seriously, this was so fun, and love the opportunity to talk Midsommar because it's one of my probably one of my favorites. I would say, but I don't know that I have to think. But I love it. So this was very fun. Thank you for coming on and spending this time with us. Everybody who is still listening, thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to come on as well or suggest a movie, please do. We mean it. Any social media or events or anything you want to shout out, Adriana?
No.
You got to throw up the handle.
Letterbox?
Handle? Oh, my letterbox. Yeah, we can do that because my Instagram isn't very interesting. I think my letterbox. Ian, you might have to fact check me on this.
I'm looking right now.
I think it's Adriana, Adrianaza. Adrianaza.
Yeah.
So follow
That's
her.
my letterbox. Follow me. I do terrible reviews.
Nice.
Yeah, I do reviews, but they're like one-liners. They're a little silly, goofy, but I'm on there. So yeah,
we love that.
Hell yeah! Join our culty community. We just will make you watch movies. You won't have to jump off anything or get burned alive, which is a pretty good deal. But it's still a cool community. You need to cry? Call us.
Exactly.
And we'll make the noise.
We need to get a hotline on here.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Ian, handles.
I mean, first off, you got to follow the pod.
Yeah.
Which is
logit_pod. I think I made it logit_pod everywhere now.
Easy peasy. Now you know where to find it. Personal one, I couldn't tell you. I don't know what the name is. Let me look. Ian_lock.
I was gonna say
that's easy.
Ian.lock or Ian_lock.
No one knows.
There you go. You can find me there. Caleb, where can our loyal listeners find you?
Yeah, follow Ian's Letterboxd and Instagram. He's very funny, and so he's got a lot of funny things that are fun to read. I am F is for Movies on Instagram and Letterboxd. Follow the Instagram. That's where we do updates. That's where we share the art. And then we're also posting all of our stuff on YouTube now. So if you prefer to listen to YouTube, we're catching up to live. I'm doing a video a day until we get there. But that started. I prefer YouTube for my podcast listening, so it's ironic it's taking me so long. But check that out. And if you would, I don't like doing this, but if you would, follow, like, subscribe,
it helps.
5-star, or any review is so nice. It really is like a big thing, anything like that coming in. So thank you to the people who already have, and I beg and plead to the others. All right, everybody, go watch a movie.
Go watch a movie.
Go on, get.
All right, I'll accept it.